I meet a lot of people who are into astrology, and often when I meet people, they'll ask what my sign is, and I'm usually a bit hesitant. Sometimes I'll avoid the question altogether because I'd rather they get an impression of me based on just getting to know me rather than making assumptions based on some astrological generalization. After all, I don't think that you can cram 8 billion human beings into just 12 specified categories. We're all uniquely different, and some people change over the course of a lifetime. I find astrology to be, in some ways, extremely vague. There was an experiment in which students were asked their sign and then given their horoscope for the day. Afterwards, they were asked to rate their horoscope on how accurately it described them, and almost all of them said that it described them perfectly. However, it was then revealed to them that they were all given the exact same horoscope. And what I mean to show by this is that we can have a tendency to read into things what we want to see. And if we believe in something strongly enough, we may even be willing to filter the information in a way that suits us. The truth is that astrology has never had much appeal to me, and not because I necessarily disbelieve in it, but primarily because I believe in the flexibility of human thought and behavior. I believe that while there is much in the universe that has the power to influence us in a number of ways, we as conscious individuals have the power to steer and direct our own lives. And it would seem that if we put too much importance upon astrology, it can hinder that flexibility. So in other words, if my horoscope tells me that I should avoid certain types of situations on a particular day, do I heed that advice, or do I make my own decisions based upon my own reasoning and intuition? Because if I follow that advice very strictly, it may work out in my favor, but it may not work out well. I might actually miss an important opportunity. It's really a 50-50 chance. And how do I know that the person giving me that information really knows what they're talking about? Even if astrology is a legitimate science, it's not a well-regulated science. And there's going to be charlatans. There's charlatans in every field. But often we tend to simply believe in things with no valid evidence. We believe just because we want to believe in something, or we want something to believe in. We believe because it's comforting. And instead of taking responsibility for our own lives, we often put that responsibility in the hands of others, whether that's religious institutions, government, or astrologers. And we simply assume that they always have our best interest in mind, when the truth is that often people are really just interested in their own self-interest, in making money or gaining some sort of recognition. I think the main issue that I have with astrology is that it can be very rigid. And I find that many people tend to use astrology as an excuse to remain stuck in certain unhealthy behavior patterns. The various signs of the zodiac come with their respective characteristics, which some people tend to cling to adamantly. So for example, in regard to unhealthy psychological traits, I'll often hear someone say, I can't help it, I'm a Virgo or a Sagittarius, or whatever their sign might be. They say, that's just how I am, which is just another way of saying I couldn't change my thought patterns and behavior if I wanted to. It's a fixed mechanism. I was born with these characteristics and I'll die with them. Something else I'll notice is that whenever Mercury retrograde rolls around, a lot of people use it to explain a number of problems in their lives rather than taking responsibility to simply change their own way of thinking and behaving. So if my relationship is suffering, for example, never mind that maybe I'm not being attentive or appreciative or whatever the issue may be, it's not me that's influencing the relationship. It's not me that's causing the trouble. It's a planet in outer space. I'm just a helpless victim of uncontrollable astrological circumstances. And I find this way of thinking to be deeply problematic because I know that we're all capable of change and that life, in fact, is a series of opportunities for personal positive growth. And I know that one of the things which prevents us from changing is the belief that we can't, the belief that we're not in control, that we don't have the power and capability. And not only does that belief discourage a person from being able to change, but it can simply be a convenient excuse because the truth is that a lot of people don't really want to change. We're comfortable in our neurosis, and it just seems like too much work, or it might mean having to face fears and discomfort. So if we can find an excuse to simply remain in those patterns, even if they're deeply unhealthy, then we'll take it. And astrology often offers people such an excuse. Being someone who is naturally skeptical, and maybe that's just because of my astrological sign, I don't easily accept things without some measure of evidence, especially things that aren't founded on sound logic or don't make any sort of rational sense. So for example, the idea that stars, which are thousands of light years away from the Earth, have some sort of influence on my psyche, and that you can determine my personality based simply on which of those stars were in the sky on the day that I was born, all seems a bit far-fetched. But also being open-minded, I'm willing to consider that maybe there's some aspect of it that I just don't understand. But no one so far has really provided me with any information that would convince me that there's anything to it. But as I said, even if we can know what traits a person is born with, that doesn't mean that those traits are fixed. Astrology tells us that the stars and planets influence our personality, our characteristics, and our behavior. And I don't know that there's really any truth to that, but I do know that astrologers can have a powerful influence on these things if we blindly accept whatever they tell us. And really nothing seems to influence our thoughts and behavior more than society, our parents, our teachers, our friends, television, and so on. And I would say that those are much stronger determining factors of what our personality is likely going to be like. But in addition, I know that we have the power as individuals to change our characteristics, our personality, and our behavior. And that begins when we stop relying upon others to tell us what to think and what to believe and how to live our lives. That stops when we take responsibility for ourselves, when we begin to think critically and to use our own insight and wisdom. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being interested in astrology. I'm not trying to dissuade anyone who has that interest, but I don't think it should be taken too seriously, at least not to the extent that we allow it to influence our way of thinking and behaving. And I certainly don't think that we should use it as an excuse to remain stuck in unhealthy patterns.